The scandal made headlines this year, prompting an apology from British Prime Minister Theresa May and leading to the resignation of the country's Home Secretary. The so-called Windrush generation of Commonwealth citizens are being denied healthcare, benefits, pensions and passports, being stripped of their jobs and threatened with deportation despite being residents in the UK for decades. Dozens have even been wrongly deported. Well, many came from African and Caribbean countries and arrived in Britain between 1948 and 1971 to fill labour shortages after World War II. For today's Perspective segment, I'm joined by British activist and social commentator Patrick Vernon. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us on the programme this morning. Good to have you with us. Despite the scandal causing outrage and the government apologising for the treatment of the Windrush generation, they continue to face many problems today. I mentioned some of those problems in my introduction, but what kind of things are they dealing with?
Well, so basically, in a nutshell, people, even though the government has made a number of apologies and they are meant to be fast-tracking people's citizenship, it's taken a lot of time for this to happen. And now the government are slightly doing a U-turn because they're now redefining what is citizenship. Only just very recently, the government have said that, yes, you are British, and Theresa May at Tory Party conference said this, but now they're introducing new tests, such as if you are of poor character, which I'm not quite sure what the definition of that, or if you've had a criminal record, then you will not automatically be guaranteed being a British citizen, which is ridiculous because, as in your news report, a lot of people that came to Britain from Africa and the Caribbean during that time who were invited on the previous British Nationality Act were British citizens. So to then say around you're not British anymore because you may have a criminal record really undermines one of the basic elements of human rights as well. Secondly, the government have, a part of their apology, they are doing a consultation on a compensation scheme because what's been quite clear through this scandal is not only have people lost their jobs, lost access to the pension rights, and even lost access to the housing rights. There have been a number of situations where people have been denied their civil liberties. So there have been a number of cases where people have been wrongly detained in detention centres in Britain who are British. And also people have been deported, and there have been a number of deaths. 2 people in the UK have died as a result of either hypertension or cardiac arrest linked to the stress and pressure of them fighting for their status in Britain. So my concern, and a number of other people's concerns, is if the government's going to compensate, which most of these people have paid their taxes the last 30, 40 years, it has to be a fair compensation scheme. The danger is that they might impose a cap and therefore not value the true cost of compensation for emotional and financial loss.
OK. Well, the Windrush scandal has been blamed on the government's crackdown on illegal immigration known as the hostile environment policy, implemented when Theresa May was Home Secretary. And it's a policy that she very recently refused to apologise for. What do you make of that?
It's very disappointing. She had the opportunity. She's apologised to individuals or apologised to people from the Windrush generation that's been affected, but she's not apologised for the hostile environment policy. And there is a clear link and relationship between that policy and the impact on the Windrush generation. So it's a bit weird. So it's like a half apology. So that's very disappointing. A lot of lawyers, campaigners, NGOs are still fighting and campaigning to make sure that the hostile environment is a policy that the government should no longer adopt. It's unfortunate because it's part of the wider conversations around Brexit as well, which may have an impact on EU nationals based in the UK.
The Windrush crisis goes deeper because some might say that historically Britain has not reconciled itself to its colonial past and the racism embedded in its immigration laws. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not only a British problem, it's a European problem. I know how France has its history as well. So in the context of Britain, you're quite right, because people were invited. After the Second World War, the country was obviously devastated, like other parts of Europe were, and there was about a massive rebuilding programme. And Britain made a call to people in the colonies all over, as part of the former British Empire, to come to Britain and to work as part of the reconstruction of Britain after the Second World War. My parents were part of that generation. They came to Britain. Millions of people came from different parts of the Commonwealth. And in many ways, without that contribution, Britain would not be the fifth most powerful economy in Britain, in the world, because of the hard work, the entrepreneurship, and doing key functions which we take for granted today. And it's an indictment on successive governments who have not respected or valued that contribution.
Now, you led calls for a national celebration known as Windrush Day on the 22nd of June. Just very quickly, tell us what this day represents to you.
So, in Britain, we don't really celebrate migration in a positive way compared to other parts of the world. On the 22nd of June 1948, the Empire Windrush was a ship. There were lots of ships and people came by plane as part of that migration journey. But that ship, that image of the ship, of people coming off the ship in Tilbury, is an iconic moment in British history, and it really ushered in the wave of migration as well. And so I've been lobbying for a number of years with campaigners that that day should be almost like a public holiday to celebrate migration in Britain. As a result of the Windrush scandal, the government now has agreed to support this day, not as a public holiday, but as a national day. And from June 22nd next year, in 2019 onwards, the government will give funding and support and have greater recognition that there should be an annual day celebrating not just the Windrush generation, but celebrating the migration contribution to Britain, which I think is going to be even more critical in a post-Brexit Britain.
OK, Patrick, thank you so much for your insight. Patrick Vernon, British activist and social commentator, joining us there from